opening a shop, you might be overwhelmed with the number of options. Do you start selling on Etsy or a similar marketplace website, or should you make your own website? There are advantages and disadvantages to both, and in this video, I'm going to go through all of the pros and cons of opening a shop on a marketplace and on your own website. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my tip for having the best of both worlds when it comes to selling online. Let's first define what a marketplace is. A marketplace such as Etsy is a site that allows you to list items for sale with them. It works a little bit like a search engine for products, where customers will search Etsy for a specific items, for instance, dinosaur stickers, and Etsy will provide customers with a list of products by many different artists. The customer can then pick their favorite product from those results. In this way, Etsy acts as a little bit of an advertiser for you. This differs from a website that you own, where all of the traffic driven to that website was done through your efforts. You have much more control over how the website looks and functions, but you also have more responsibility to maintain it and drive traffic to it. So which one should you choose? It depends. Let's look at the pros and cons. Pros of using a marketplace such as Etsy are Etsy will drive traffic to the products for you, meaning that you can reach customers that you might not have been able to reach without it. It's great for starting out if you don't already have a following online. The upfront costs are a bit cheaper since you don't have to start paying for things like a domain name or web hosting ahead of time. You can list an item for just 20 cents, and you don't have to pay anything after that until you make a sale. Now keep in mind, it doesn't have zero startup fees. You do have to pay 20 cents for each listing that you make, but it is much cheaper than, for instance, a Shopify store. Since Etsy is an established brand, customers might have more trust buying via Etsy than buying from a store that they've never heard the name of. You might find that some people only shop on Etsy instead of going to a creator's independent website. I find that I get a lot of repeat customers via Etsy, even though I attempt to drive traffic to my own website instead. Etsy just has that brand loyalty and social proof, and also buyer protection that people trust more than rando website McGee.com. Fourth is that Etsy will handle collecting and remitting tax as well as VAT for international orders, which can be really daunting to set up when starting your own store. I know that my brain cannot comprehend VAT, and it also is different in different countries, and that's very overwhelming, and Etsy just kind of handles it for me, which is nice. On the other hand, the cons of selling via Etsy is that Etsy charges fees for selling an item that can total up to 15% of the sale, which is fairly steep. Listing them all out, their listing fee is 20 cents per item, which is paid when you list an item, not when you sell it. And on top of that, every time you make a sale, they charge a listing fee of 6.5% of your item's retail price, aka the price that you set the item for sale at. This 6.5% also includes the amount you charge for shipping, which many Etsy sellers have taken issue with, because you don't earn money from shipping. All of the money that the customer pays you for shipping, you pay for a shipping label to send the item to the customer. So to charge a fee on top of that, the 6.5% fee is inclusive of shipping, is kind of scummy in my opinion. Payment processing fees are 3% of the retail price plus 25% per transaction. This is pretty normal. You'll find this in pretty much everywhere you sell at. The payment processing fees are just what the credit cards or payment processors take in order to fund the sale. So that 3% is standard across the board, no matter where you sell at. Lastly, on Etsy, if somebody clicks an Etsy ad from another website, for instance, they're on Facebook browsing and they see an Etsy ad, and then they buy one of your products after clicking on that ad, Etsy will take an extra 12 to 15% for off-site ads fees for bringing traffic to your product. These fees can stack up fairly quickly, eating significantly into your profit margins. I've actually seen some sellers that sell small items such as stickers say that they've taken a loss because of these fees. They're not making money, they're paying money to Etsy to sell these items. Another con is that because traffic goes through Etsy, it could make some customers less likely to remember your shop or brand name. Somebody might say, oh, I got these earrings off of Etsy, instead of, oh, I got these earrings off of, these are from Cookie Smut. You have a lot less brand recognition when you're selling through Etsy because they're just going through Etsy.com. It's almost like saying, oh, I got this off of Amazon, you know? You also have much less control over the appearance of your shop, limited only to a header and a profile picture. Third is that Etsy has become a fairly saturated market, not just with artists, but also, unfortunately, with resellers and dropshippers. Etsy seems to have absolutely no intention of removing dropshippers from their website. Whatever makes them money, I guess. Therefore, it can be very difficult to gain traction and stand out with your Etsy shop if you're just starting out. In order to have your listing appear when somebody searches for an item, you're gonna have to take some time to learn search engine optimization so that you can write titles, descriptions, and tags that will allow your items to rank highly in searches. There are tools such as eRank that you can use to help you figure out which tags and titles you should use. That's a free tool that I use sometimes. To be honest, I kind of hate Etsy SEO. Product titles end up looking like something you got off of Wish, with keyword stuffing like alluring earrings, breathtaking fancy earrings, intriguing earrings, impressive earrings, nice earrings for her, breathtaking earrings. You can also see publicly how many sales a shop has made, so if you're just starting out and you have 0 sales, your shop is not going to read as trustworthy. So you might want to do something like ask a friend or family member if they can buy something from your Etsy shop and review it so that you at least have a couple of sales and reviews to start out with. All of that makes it really hard to start from scratch. So that's Etsy covered. Other marketplace websites may or may not have the exact same pros and cons as Etsy, but Etsy is the most popular platform, so that's the one that I'm kind of focusing on. As for building your own website, what are the pros and cons of selling via your own website? First pro is that you are in complete control over how your website looks and functions. You can design the website to fit your brand's theme, creating a unique and memorable experience for your customers. If you want to add new features to your website, such as a mailing list integration, you can, because your site is yours to do whatever you want with. Speaking of a mailing list, you should absolutely be capturing customers' emails with consent so that you can market to them with relatively little effort. That's another thing actually that Etsy I don't think allows you to do. So we'll just tack that on. We'll just pin that back up into the cons list, is that you cannot market very well to your Etsy customers. Some website builders such as Shopify and Squarespace even have email marketing built in, so that's a plus. But also there are tons of free options for email marketing even if you don't have it built into your website. Anyway, back on track. Another pro is that you aren't competing with thousands of other sellers on your website. Everybody who visits your domain is there specifically for your products, and they won't be distracted by millions of other products by other artists. Third is that there aren't listing fees. You can list as many products as you want and you won't be having to pay 20 cents each time. So if you're somebody who has a ton of products, that could save you some money. And speaking of saving money, another pro is that transaction fees will be significantly reduced compared to Etsy and will only depend on the payment processing fee, aka PayPal or Stripe or whatever credit card you go through. Those are around 3 to 5%. Like I said, it's kind of the same across the board. You just won't have all of the extra fees that Etsy adds on to your transactions. The cons of selling through your own website versus a marketplace are that if you don't have an established audience, it can be very hard to generate traffic to your website and make sales. There are things that you can do, and I'm currently learning a lot about search engine optimization for websites, but it is difficult. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. Second is that the startup costs are a lot higher. There are frugal ways to run a website. For instance, I ran my website and my shop for $6 a month with shared hosting and WooCommerce for years. I wouldn't recommend it. There are reasons that I left, but it's doable. Most reputable e-commerce website builders will run about $30 a month, and this can be higher if you're also paying for extra things like design or additional features. So the startup cost can be steep, but there are ways to do it in a more frugal kind of way. Third is that maintaining a website can eat up a lot of time that you could otherwise use to create or market your products. Depending on the website service you use, you may also want or need to learn a little bit of CSS or HTML or even PHP in order to fix issues that may arise, especially if you don't have the money to hire a web developer. And if you're going the more frugal route like I did for years, you are absolutely going to need to learn at least some of these things. Let me tell you how much stupid stuff I had to fix when I was using WooCommerce. Lastly is that websites can often be a target for fraud and brute force hacking attempts, so you'll need to make sure that your site's security is working to prevent loss of service or, even worse, customer data theft. And this fits neither in the pros or the cons, really, but depending on your volume of sales, Etsy or a website might be cheaper. A website comes with upfront costs including a domain name and hosting fees, and these fees will vary depending on which hosting you choose, and they might be more or less expensive than Etsy's transaction fees depending on the number of sales you make. If you don't make a lot of sales, Etsy is probably going to be cheaper for you, but if you do make a high volume of sales, it might actually be cheaper to make your own website and pay a flat monthly fee instead of a percentage of your sales. To recap, Etsy or similar marketplaces might be better for you if you don't have the ability to drive an audience to your website that you own. It might be cheaper for you, depending on your volume of sales. But selling via your own website might be better if you have a way to generate traffic or a pre-existing audience to sell to. You have more control over your site and better brand recognition. Whether you sell on Etsy or a marketplace or create your own website is up to you. You can also do both, which is what I do. I don't advertise my Etsy outside of a small line at the bottom of my website that directs UK and EU buyers to Etsy because I haven't been able to figure out VAT for the life of me, and Etsy will just take care of that for me. But because Etsy is a marketplace, even though I'm not advertising it, I still get domestic customers via Etsy who find my products via organic search. Which leads me to one last tip. I would prefer my customers shop via my website instead of Etsy, but since people are finding me there anyway due to the search functions, I send domestic customers a thank you card that contains a coupon if they switch to shopping on glitchberry.com instead of Etsy. This cuts down on fees for me and drives traffic to my site, and they get a discount, so it's a win for both of us. This is something that I'm pretty recently implementing. I used to have a thank you card that didn't contain a coupon, and now I'm adding the coupon, so we'll see how it works. Maybe I'll report back in the comments. And if you have any tips, leave them in the comments too. So hopefully now you have a better idea of the pros and cons of selling on a marketplace versus selling on your own website, and which platform or platforms you'd like to use when starting your own store. If you are thinking of starting your own website, check out my previous video where I discussed everything that I learned when I opened a Shopify store in 30 days. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay weird.